And rejoin us as we commence this afternoon's session. And for those who are joining us online as well, thank you for staying or remaining in the afternoon session. For those who haven't filled our evaluation forms, the team at CTU were quite busy. They sent it to your emails, so that is an easy access for you to fill out our evaluation forms from day 1 and day 2. So thanks much to the team at CTU. All right, as we already have at our head table as well. So everyone, once again, welcome back. As we continue this afternoon, let's remember that ICT is more than just about tools and devices. It's about unlocking opportunities. From our perspective, we understand that the Caribbean must play a vital role in the UN's Global Digital Compact, that is, and our role in the upcoming UN Summit of the Future, scheduled for September 2024. That's less than a month away, I could say. It is therefore fitting that during this session, focus must be given to examining the UN GDC and preparing the region to make meaningful contributions. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no stranger to the forum that has been joined with us for the past 2 days as well. I have Ms. Shernan Osepa, the consultant with the CTU, to the podium to lead this afternoon's discussion. Let's give him a warm welcome, please.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. So this session, we are going to focus on examining the Global Digital Compact. And for this session, we do have a few speakers. We will first start with the given overview, what is all the GDC about. And for this particular session, we do have Maarten Boterman. So that's the right pronunciation, Maarten Boterman. And then after that, we will also be focusing a bit on the high-level advisory body on artificial intelligence. And then we will be having Dr. Craig Ramral and also Ms. Jimena Viveros. So let's start first with Maarten Boterman, giving us an overview regarding the GDC. Maarten.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, everybody, for being here and having your interest also in what this GDC, this Global Digital Compact, is about. So, as Sharon said, it's in the context of the Summit of the Future. And the Summit of the Future is the once every couple of years type event the UN has to really look ahead to the future. Sometimes it's coupled also with the mandate of the current Secretary General. But for sure, it is to look ahead, understanding we are in a time of change, a time of challenges. And these challenges aren't only digital. So the summit is also not only digital, it's looking at reinforcing global governance, how to strengthen the way of governing this world together, the multilateral system, so the negotiation between countries, how do we make sure that continues to be effective going forward? But also about reaffirming commitments, the UN Charter for Human Rights, advancing the SDGs, and formulating a pact for the future with real commitments and actions. So in all this, again, the emphasis on multilateral solutions, making it work and committing to it. Now, if you look to the Global Digital Compact, it's very much recognized that the industry, stakeholders, multi-stakeholder have an influence there. And therefore, in this multilateral discussion, stakeholders are invited to contribute. Now, that's what has been done, and that's also what resulted in some of the recommendations. But it's really inviting to contribute to, after the contribution, goes back to a multilateral process. The GDC, the Global Digital Compact, set out the guiding principles for digital governance with a focus on inclusion, focus on human rights, and recognizing multi-stakeholder engagement, at least in the current draft, which has not been approved yet, which is to be approved. And it has some action-oriented outcomes. These action-oriented outcomes and actions are really about creating together an inclusive and secure digital space with digital trust and security, and also inclusive governance, which sounds like, to me, multi-stakeholder governance. Recognizing emerging technologies. Why emerging technologies? Because they will affect the world of tomorrow, but maybe there's things we need to do today to make sure they are not too disruptive. They are not creating irreversible damage, things like that. Examples of that are, for instance, the AI Act in Europe, which says we need to see how we can prevent that to happen, basically, and then we'll follow up with next steps. And the Presidential Act in the US and other initiatives are this time taken by different regions. So to say something at UN level sort of makes sense. How to do it, how to say it, that is the challenge. Personally, I believe that the way internet governance has developed over the decades is something we can learn from, even if we cannot develop AI governments over decades. And last but not least, the international cooperation, and there in the GDC, the emphasis is on, at this moment, multi-stakeholder approach. Now, why do I emphasize also the fact that the process is multilateral? It's a UN process, and basically it's about countries deciding how they best take care of their citizens and the world together. That's the principle. But in those discussions, it's very good that they've been reaching out to multi-stakeholders to see, so what should we do about this? Because governments aren't building this digital space. We do that together. And yes, governments have a role in that, but they cannot do it without us. It's mainly done by industry, academia, users, business, how it evolves. And government sets the boundaries and ensures that the law that is existing isn't broken. Sometimes they're trying to translate that law, and so what does it mean for digital? But in principle, the law is the law, and you shall not steal applies to online stealing as well, in a way. So what happens in the process of consultation is that we've been invited also as ICANN to contribute to that, and then these sessions where evidence was offered, insights were offered, were not recorded. There's no reports of it, other than reports from the people themselves. And so it's really up to the countries in their multilateral negotiations to see what of that they will take on board or not. And this is why we are currently slightly worried that elements like multi-stakeholder will not be accepted in the GDC in the end before it's condoned. That's also why, for instance, the IGF, which is organized in a multi-stakeholder way. There's the MAG, the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, of which we have the honor of having the chair here. But it's a UN body as well, and the UN is to say what is going to happen next with the IGF. Currently, we believe that the IGF as such is safe because the IGF has become so much more than that one time a year event in a country somewhere. It's also here. It's in different countries and more around the world. So it has inspired dialogue all over the place. And I think strengthening that, also making sure that the arguments from other stakeholders and governments are more explicitly taken into account is a challenge I see going forward. As such, the GDC is, I think, a good step in the right direction, and I look forward to further interaction on this. So, hope that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Martin, for giving us an overview on the GDC. So I think what I will do is let's hear also from the other presenters, and after that we can have a discussion with all of them. So once we have heard, let's say, the view of all of them, then we can have a better, more meaningful discussion. So the next presenter, I would like to invite Dr. Craig Ramlal, who is who is working for the University of the West Indies, but he's on the high-level advisory board on artificial intelligence. So, Craig, Dr. Craig, are you there?
Hi,
Yes.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Segundo. Esto se supone que lo iba a decir yo, pero creo que como no me vieron.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can. It should be available.
Okay. Do let me know if you see my screen. So this would just be on a quick. So we heard about the quick overview of the Global Digital Compact. I'll go into it a bit in detail and then discuss some items on how the process is going to work, in where it has been,
Sí,
some
perdón.
on the AI body.
Sería eso ya nada más.
And afterwards, I think we will move into the second session, I think, and we will discuss the AI body's agenda. So let's start with the digital compact. So we heard about the process and what it is, and I'll just give a few notes on why it is the way it is. Right now, we have a digital divide in the world that still remains a global significant issue. And although we have increased internet connectivity around the world, it's still disparate, where you have issues with individuals across regions, genders, incomes, and languages, and age groups not having internet access. It has grown to 5.3 billion people having internet access, but it still remains unaffordable for many, and for many low income regions, where the cost of smartphones and data is prohibitively high, the divide is significantly impacting their economic welfare. Now, this divide is not limited to access of the internet, but also to digital skills and the concentration of economic benefits with wealth from digital innovations predominantly accrue to a small group of large platforms. Many developing countries are at risk of becoming providers of raw data, such as ours, while having to pay for services that their data helps to produce. So on top of all this, the governance gap further complicates the digital landscape as rapid technological advancements routinely outpace the ability of governments to regulate effectively. Some public institutions, often under-resourced, struggle to address these challenges, leading to a growing concentration of power in private hands. So that really brings us to the motivation of the GDC. So we heard about the purpose of the GDC. It's actually the part of the roadmap of the Global Digital Cooperation Framework. It's one of the 7 steps. The purpose of the GDC is to establish an inclusive global framework where we have 5 overarching initiatives. These include the closing all digital divides and accelerating progress across the Sustainable Development Goals, expanding the inclusion and benefits from the digital economy for all, foster an inclusive, open, safe, and secure digital space that respects, protects, and promotes human rights, advance responsibility, equitability, and interoperability of data governance approaches, enhance the international governance of artificial intelligence for the benefit of humanity. So where are we right now in the GDC process? We are in revision 3. You can scan the QR code presented here, and you would be able to read the latest revision. It is still in negotiations, as said previously, but it would be launched. The recommendations of the GDC would be established and launched at the Summit of the Future in September. From this, the AI body has worked on Objective 5, which would be the enhancement of international governance of AI for the benefit of humanity. And in that session, we will discuss what recommendations and principles that we built our guidelines on, and what we can expect coming out of the Summit of the Future. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg. The next presenter that we have, and she's also on the high-level advisory body on artificial intelligence, HLEB, Jimena Viveros. So are you there, Jimena? Do we have Jimena online? Oh, yes, she's there.
Yeah, she's there. I think she's muted.
Jimena, I think you're on mute, and I see your bit working. But
Hello.
okay. Yes,
Hello.
okay, go ahead. Yes.
Hi. Sorry. Can you all hear me?
Yes, but drive safely, right? We don't want accidents.
No. Sorry, I am on the move. But thank you so much for having me here. So, dear experts, we are delighted to be here with you today. My name is Jimena Viveros, a member of the UN High-Level Advisory Body on AI, and I am pleased to introduce you to well, you already met Craig. So wonderful. Now we are presenting the slides. Do you have the slides? Are we on the screen?
I think, Shannon, can you, are we moving to, is that in the second session, or would we do comments on the GDC first and then we'll move to slides in the second session? Or is it that we do slides now for the HLab?
If she's ready to present, she can do that. If not, then we will see how we can do it.
Well, if it's okay with you, we can move along with the slideshow, unless you want to, Craig, do you want to do something different?
Sure.
Yes, okay.
We can do the slides. I shared the slides. If that
Perfect.
suits.
Thank you. Wonderful. So thank you very much, Craig. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide you, since the launch of our body in October last year by the Secretary General. The publication of our interim report was out in December, and 19th of September, so before the Summit of the Future. So at the end of the session, there will be a possibility to provide feedback and ask some questions. So that's the timeline that we are looking now in this slide. So perhaps we can change the slide. So we, since our publication, the interim report, there has been a lot of feedback that has been generated across all regions, reflecting the global interest in this crucial issue, which includes 250 written inputs from more than 150 organizations and over 100 individuals. A risk pulse check, a horizon scan of 350 experts was also conducted. 18 deep dives, bringing together over 300 experts, which was quite remarkable. Also, over 100 papers were analyzed, and over 40 consultations. All of the above has been incorporated into our final report draft, which, as I mentioned, will be released in September. So regarding the deep dives, As part of our commitment to addressing the multifaceted challenges of artificial intelligence, we have engaged in an extensive series of deep dive sessions from March to May. These sessions have been instrumental in shaping our final report. As you can see from the slide, the wide range impacted by AI. So you can see them all here. And even some of them had different sessions. As you can see, agriculture, standards, and peace and security. There were also regional consultations, which we can see in the next slide. As we held over 50 regional consultations across all regions of the world. Thank you for the slide change. With the participation and support of various agencies, such as UNESCO, the World Bank, and the UN Secretary General, and a lot of people involved in this effort. These consultations were extremely valuable as they provided a greater diversity of perspectives, ensuring our recommendations were inclusive and reflected the views from all regions of the world. In our final report, we wish to share a summary of the analysis of the international and sectoral AI governance landscapes and a summary of the recommendations for the report. Also, just to remind you that following this presentation, we welcome any questions or comments you may have. Our analysis underscores the urgent need for a unified, global, and holistic approach to AI governance. As AI technologies advance and their impacts become more profound, a coordinated global effort is essential to address the challenges and harness the opportunities they present. Therefore, our key recommendations that you can see on this slide are a common understanding. We propose the establishment of an international scientific panel on AI to foster a shared understanding of AI's implications and facilitate informed decision-making. Also, common ground. We recommend initiating a policy dialogue on AI governance and AI standards exchange to create a platform for discussion and standardization amongst stakeholders. The next one is common benefits. This is in order to ensure equitable access to AI benefits. So we suggest the creation of a capacity development network, a global fund for AI, alongside a global AI data framework to manage and utilize AI data responsibly. And last, but very much not least, common purpose. We also advocate for the establishment of an AI office within the UN Secretariat to oversee and coordinate international AI efforts, ensuring alignment with global objectives and fostering international collaborations. There's also the very urgent need for a global approach. So there is an imperative for this type of approach, and for this, we must highlight a significant trend in the realm of the global governance of AI. Since the release of ChatGPT, we have observed a remarkable surge in global efforts as the number of key milestones in these initiatives has sharply increased. Prior to ChatGPT, there were fewer than 3 major milestones per year. In 2023 alone, this number rose to 6, and the first half of 2024 has already seen several major milestones. As AI continues to evolve and integrate more deeply into various sectors, the urgency for comprehensive and effective governance frameworks has become more and more apparent. In the next slide, we can see that despite the progress and numerous efforts made to address AI governance, the feedback we received continued to confirm the global governance deficit mentioned in our interim report. Also, our findings underscore that AI's very nature, its transboundary structure, function, application, the diverse range of actors involved, and its dual-use nature necessitates a coordinated global strategy. AI governance demands that we move beyond isolated initiatives and develop an integrated framework that can effectively address these challenges. The UN, with its unique position and mandate, is ideally and uniquely situated to lead this effort. The goal is to transform the current patchwork of evolving initiatives into a coherent and interoperable system, which is grounded in universal values agreed upon by member states, so the UN Charter and international law at large, so that it can also be adaptable across various contexts. In the next, here we can see that in any case, our examination of major international AI governance initiatives reveals a stark and concerning gap. For example, if we take a sample of major international AI governance initiatives, ranging from the OECD, the G20, Council of Europe, GPI, G7, and all of the AI summits, for example, in the UK and Korea, which are shown here on the screen. And we also look at how many countries are involved in each one. We find that only 7 countries are party to all of them. This is a very remarkable finding. And by contrast, 118 countries are party to none of them. And that's not acceptable when we're talking about global governance. So these 118 countries are largely from Africa, Asia, the Pacific, and Latin America and the Caribbean. So notably the Global South, which are largely absent. So in that regard, our advisory body has taken a humanity level view. From this perspective, we confirm that there is indeed a governance gap in international AI governance. So we received numerous requests for the UN to play a role in bridging these gaps by complementing these plurilateral initiatives and offer a stable and reliably inclusive home for issues that cannot be handled only among a subset of countries. So in the next slide, we see that addressing AI governance on a global scale has numerous advantages, including equity, effectiveness, and efficiency. Not to say inclusiveness. AI impacts all of humanity, and therefore our governance structures must be inclusive and equitable. We need a new social contract that reflects human rights and ensures that the benefits and responsibilities associated with AI are shared equally across all nations. By fostering global inclusivity, we can build local capacity, allowing every region to innovate and leverage AI according to its specific needs and opportunities. Effectiveness, this is a significant advantage that would come from this global approach. A worldwide perspective facilitates the flow of information and pooling of knowledge, even among countries with various or varying interests and priorities. This global framework allows for soft coordination between different regional and plurilateral initiatives, helping to create a unified governance landscape. Importantly, it also prevents harmful competitive practices that may lower safety standards. Additionally, global governance supports cross-border interoperability, ensuring that AI systems work seamlessly across different jurisdictions. Finally, global governance enhances efficiency. So by building on existing commitments and connecting established organizations, we can streamline our efforts and avoid redundancy. This efficient approach enables us to leverage existing frameworks and collaborate effectively, optimizing our response to the challenges posed by AI. And from the next slide, I will hand over to my brilliant colleague, Craig Ramlal, to follow up on this. And thank you very much. And I look forward to the questions and answers part of this.
Yes, thank you very much, Jimena. Craig, so you do have a few additional slides that you would like to focus on?
I do. I do.
Yes.
I
Okay, go
promise I
ahead.
would not take too much time.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So, uh, so we heard about what is happening with the global deficit on AI governance. We also understand that AI is quite complex; it's multifaceted. So, when we look at the governance frameworks, when we look at the UN system, there are currently a lot of existing governance documents related to AI. The UN Interagency Working Group on AI submitted a white paper on what 50 UN entities are doing on AI. We have analyzed them, and a sample is given here. This slide shows an overview of some 60 policies, instruments reported by UN systems, governance frameworks, and so on. As you can see, there's a lot going on in very specific and general and very specialized areas at the global level. This is very helpful in addressing the AI risks and harnessing AI benefits in specific domains such as health, agriculture, standards, human rights, or ethics. What we took an approach to is to combine all of these efforts as well as to help these efforts by taking a holistic approach to AI governance. And so to aid with what is being done with OECD, GPI, G7, G20, Council of Europe, and so on. And we took that approach because we see a representation gap that is, especially for the global south and some countries who are not participants to this AI governance framework. AI is a very general purpose technology, and it shows up in many areas across domains, and it requires a dedicated focus and a very holistic approach. So we are looking at things like hyper evolutionary, looking at its dual use, having it open sourced, and looking at a minimal marginal cost of proliferation of these systems. So let's come to what we are recommending and the parts that we wrote in the Objective 5 of the GDC. So our final report makes 7 key recommendations based on 3 common areas. These are common understanding, common ground, and common benefits. Let's first talk about the common understanding. So from our feedback, there were many comments on the need for a common understanding on AI and requests for the UN to support a newly constructed international scientific panel on AI. The purpose of this panel would be to facilitate knowledge pooling from across silos in multiple countries and to serve as an entity that can coordinate with all existing national and plurinational initiatives, such as GPI and so on. The deliverables of this panel would be an annual report on the capabilities, opportunities, and risks of AI. They would also release a quarterly thematic research digest on areas in which AI can help achieve the SDGs, and ad hoc reports on emerging issues and risks. Let's now look at the common ground. So to establish this common ground, we received calls for the UN to establish a platform for intergovernmental exchange on the governance of AI. We saw from previous slides how existing international AI governance initiatives leaves out many states, especially the global south. So the purpose of this international governance dialogue on AI would be to share best practices on AI governance, report on significant AI incidents that exceeded the capacity of state agencies to respond, and to promote common understandings on cross-border implementation of AI governance measures by private and public sector developers and users. Additionally, we received requests for the UN to facilitate a harmonization of standards whilst enhancing their interoperability. So we are proposing an international standards exchange for the development and maintenance of a register of definitions and applicable standards for measuring and evaluating AI systems. The exchange would perform the quality control on the standards and identify gaps where new standards are needed. Okay, so let's now talk about the common benefits. To establish common benefits, we received requests for the global network, which ensures inclusivity, data diversity, and cross-domain training. This is necessary because it prioritizes equity by focusing on diverse cultural and regional needs. It also coordinates with existing capacity building initiatives within the UN system, and its key purposes of the common benefits are to align regional and global AI capacity efforts by building a network of UN-affiliated centers. We would look at developing sandboxes and curate a suite of online educational opportunities on AI. And we would establish a fellowship program for promising individuals in the Global South. The common benefits, we hope, would be supported by a global data framework. From our feedback on the interim report, it has led us to propose a global data framework for those who don't have access to data in order to train AI systems. And so it would address some interrelated issues around unrepresentative data training data sets, rights violations in relation to AI training data sets, and the training data set monopolization. The framework will promote rights respecting AI training data, including addressing missing data and flourishing local AI ecosystems for benefits sharing at scale. Finally, in common benefits, we would seek to establish a global fund for AI. The overall mission of this fund would be to bring together local talent, data, and compute, and to promote public capacity building and support local entrepreneurs and ecosystems. We propose that the fund be a mix of public, private, and philanthropic financing, and the contributions can be in kind or financial. The fund would offer seed funding for the commingling of talent, data, and compute to incubate local capacities. Now, how do we drive all this? To facilitate this international AI governance ecosystem under a common purpose, we propose an AI office in the UN system to address the global AI governance deficit. The office will enable more information flow and soft coordination across regional and other AI governance initiatives. This would be more efficient since it would be a shared overhead cost as a common point for all matters dealing with AI, and it would be more effective since it would promote easier coordination between functions that enables quicker response to risks via a whole of UN approach rather than having it operate in different silos. And that's it for my presentation. I think we can have questions now. Shannon, I give it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg. I think it's quite important for us to realize that we are talking about a very important topic right now because the IGF, Internet Governance Forum, that's something that we know. We have been dealing with it for so long, for let's say for 20 years. But the GDC, that's something new, Global Digital Compact. What is that? So we have seen some, let's say, breakdown regarding what it is, but still it is something that most people don't understand. And as has been said, we need to attend the summit, or the governments in the region, they're going, or for the world, are going to attend the summit of the future. And if they don't understand what this is all about, I mean, strange things might happen. So that is why we are trying to raise awareness regarding the GDC, Global Digital Compact. So before I make, let's say, a bit more a deep dive from the GDC, just a general question that I would like to ask the three panelists, Craig, Martin, and Jimena. So was there, I think this has been discussed a few times, but I would like to hear it right now as well. Was there a real need for us to go for the GDC, given that more or less all the topics that are being discussed here, one way or the other, they could be addressed as well at the IGF? So I'm just playing a bit of devil advocate right now, and I would like to hear your opinion on it before we move on with focusing a bit more on the GDC itself. So let me start with Martin, given that he did mention an overview of the GDC.
Okay, thanks for that, Sharon, and thank you guys for the overview from the UN process in this. First remark, yes, we are in a shift of time. digital will and is affecting our society fundamentally. So it's good we talk about it. It's good that we look at our commitments and see how is this going to work. It's good that the UN, in the broader context of the Summit of the Future, looks at how can we continue to be effective in a world where not all countries are even willing to talk with each other at equal level. So that the Summit of the Future makes sense. The Global Digital Compact is a logical component of that. But indeed, my main concern, and that's a question I also like to ask to the following two respondents, is that the presentation also for the AI office. We recognize AI will have a fundamental impact on society, and we recognize that it should be inclusive in its approach. It should be respecting human rights. It should be all that. But in the presentation of what is indicated as a reliable, inclusive approach, it only talks about countries to talk about this on a global level. Now, companies, NGOs, and even citizens working across the globe as well nowadays, does this mean that in the current thinking on the reliable, inclusive approach, you lean on countries to have that approach within their own country, with their stakeholders? And what do we lose in terms of the fact that there's other global players? I mean, some countries will pick this up, like New Zealand, that has an inclusive approach towards its stakeholders and involve all kind of hearings with citizens, etc., in their policy making. Others don't have that. That's the first problem. The second problem is the players, the stakeholders are also global. If they have to deliver their input via individual countries, that's not as effective as being at the table at local level. So how can this be foreseen? Last remark, an approach that is seen in Europe is that the AI Act that the European Commission has proposed to move forward in ensuring that AI gets fostered, but also preventing irreversible damage. The first step there is to have, together with industry, work on a memorandum of understanding that is then the basis for further steps, urging that law as exists counts also in an AI environment. So I hope you can clarify this, and I'm really passionate about it because I care, and I'm a father of children too.
Yes, thank you, Martin. Craig, do you have maybe some comments?
Yes, but I see Jimena's hand. She wants
And
to...
Jimena as well.
Yeah, so I would go after Jimena. You go ahead.
Thank you, Craig. And thank you, Martin. And thank you all for your attention and questions. So I think we all kind of need to go back to what we mentioned about the interoperability and the harnessing all of the efforts into a global approach. All of this is kind of in the interweaving of initiatives. So what we recognize is no single initiative is more important than the other. Everything matters in this ecosystem. But in order for it to be completely effective and efficient and non-duplication of efforts and all of this, we propose everything to be kind of like embedded into one global framework so that everything can be aligned and be in the best way applicable for everyone. And your point on the multi-stakeholder kind of inclusion, I mean, we need to remember that the legal system as it stands right now, the international legal order, it's state-based. So international commitments can only be adopted by states. That's how things stand. However, especially regarding AI, where we see this power shift dynamic, where it's not only states, but private industry that is developing this technology at an exponential rate, there is a shift. And that also concerns every sector of society. So civil society, individuals, academia, etc. So beyond just the private sector. So that's why in our consultations, we did engage with all type of multi-stakeholders, and the consultations and the deep dives held experts and representation from all of the sectors. Also understanding the fact that this is a dual-use, repurposable technology, which impacts every domain. So that also kind of like broadens the scope of discussion of who should be involved and because who is going to be affected, which is literally everyone in every single domain, which is also kind of, it also happened with the internet, of course, but we're looking at this from a different perspective and a larger scalability kind of impact. So that would be kind of the comments that I have, which I am sure that Craig will add on brilliantly.
Yes, yeah, I agree. So what we did is, as you recall, we had consultations, including the multilaterals and multi-stakeholder groups. And this was very broad. This was in standards. We looked at standards organizations. We looked at, as Jimena said, domain-specific issues. We looked at how global governance should be treated. And the common, of course, everyone has their own unique way of treating it, but the common thing that we got out of it was this need, as Jimena said, for an agreed set of participation. So this does not exclude the multilateral stakeholders at all. They would be included in the discussion of this, especially for capacity building as well for nations who would need help at the start of getting their local AI talent being built. So just to agree with him in saying that everyone is included, as well as what we present is really the common voice of what the domains were saying for the governance of AI. And we did not leave IGF out of this at all. They were represented in the discussions.
Yes, thank you very much, Craig. So let me hear from the audience. I would like to hear some questions, concerns, remark. I see Lance Heinz. Please go ahead.
When I first heard of GDC, I smiled because I've been around long enough to remember the days when there were governments demanding that ICANN become a treaty-based organization as opposed to the California corporation that it is. And for a second there, when I heard GDC, I thought this was the 2023-2024 end run to coming back to the same treaty-based organization that we're trying to achieve. But that's in the past, let's move on. And I guess for GDC and also for what I have seen in terms of the AI government framework, this is heavy. This is a very large footprint. And when you look at a region like ours, where this is in the embryonic stages, and there is some idea that this might be able to be harnessed for regional development, economic development, social economic development, what have you. And I guess a concern that I have is that if this is too heavy and there isn't that flexible light touch, which will allow the innovation and the creativity and the development that we need. And I look at these rules of exchange and stuff like that. And I guess I'm not sure at the moment how you could deftly apply this in this region to make sure that as much as possible, if we're going to use AI constructively for what it is that we'd like to do, whether we could do it successfully. And I'd be happy to hear the comments of the panelists.
Yes, I think let me give Craig, let's say, maybe the opportunity to answer.
Yes,
because Craig is from the region. So I would like to hear his opinion. And then after that, we can hear the opinion from our other experts as well.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Shinan. So I know I completely agree with you, right? So yeah, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I teach at the University of the West Indies. I teach in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. And I completely agree in looking at the nuances in how AI can really benefit our region, noting our culture, noting our resources, noting our problems, and noting what we really have the capacity to do, right? And this is speaking as someone who has I've been at the university, taught at the university now for the past 10 years, right? And we produce all electrical engineers from our department, we produce all electrical engineers to the Caribbean. We have taken a role, especially in the development of some of these frameworks, that it is not tied specifically to reduce the innovation of certain regions. We have made sure that that can't happen. Although any kind of guardrails we have is for the protection of the people and of the local regions that they would exist in. At the university, one of the things that we have made sure to do in preparation for what is coming for AI is the development of 6 postgraduate AI programs, moving students through CAPE, through CXC CAPE, all the way up to a PhD in AI. And we are looking to launch that in January. And the reason for doing that is that we have noticed, and we have when I have been speaking to governments in our region, we know that there's this shift from the discussion of digital transformation to now a discussion on data protection, AI governance. It's all of it is wrapped up, and it really fits within the Global Digital Compact. So we want to prepare our region for something like this. So thank you so much for that question. I hope I
Thank you very much, Craig. Are there any other questions from the audience? Rodney Taylor, Secretary General.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the presentations by the panelists. With respect to these, I think it was referenced the body or office to be established in the UN. Would this be under the office of the tech envoy? That's the question. I'm wondering, because there's no doubt that AI is transformational, but it is a technology. And I know the UN specifically has a role in global governance around things of human rights and international peace and security, economic and social development. But there are specialized institutions of the UN, like the ITU, for example, that has the Global AI for Good initiative. And whether or not the UN itself is the right place, given the nature of the technology, transformative as it is, whether that would be the right place, while the UN still continues to grapple with those fundamental issues of peace and security and social development, human rights, and so on. Or whether, I mean, Lance referred to something as a light touch. You know, in other words, having done this work to promote cooperation, whether it should maybe step back and look and see how the other specialized institutions can take it forward, working along with organizations like ICANN and all the others that are in the technology space. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Rodney. Martin or Jimena, one of you would like to answer this?
No, I really want to thank also both Craig and Jimena for their contributions and for recognizing the importance of the input also of all stakeholders. If we look back to the history of the internet, we see that this was actually built, it came from a different place. It came from a place bottom up, throughout, and it developed into a global public good that is incredibly robust with a multi-stakeholder approach. And I just see that if you come from a UN perspective, a multilateral perspective, you come more from a political interest perspective. And that, so I've seen over time how this moves closer towards inclusive in also taking other stakeholders into account. And the challenge for us together is to make that effective happening going forward. So thanks for that recognition, and I really look forward to see how together we can make that happen in the best possible way. Because in the end, it's about us, the future of the world, and the future generations. So thank you very much.
Jimena, please.
Yes. Thank you. So just to address why the UN is uniquely positioned in this, regardless of structurally where it is located within the UN or what magnitude it has. The UN, despite having the setbacks that it has, it also is uniquely positioned with 193 member states. That's the highest number of members in any international organization. So in that regard, there is no better place to harness such an initiative as this one, because we already have the commitment of 193 states with the principles of the UN Charter, which it should be, which is what we propose, should be the basis of AI governance. So we're already departing from those principles. The challenges precisely on peace and security that were mentioned among economic development and all of the others would be a harder task to accomplish anywhere else that does not have this commitments, this binding commitments already in place. So this is why the UN is the best place, in my opinion, to hold this governance, to be the guardian of whatever binding commitments can come out of the Summit of the Future. We obviously, and I personally also recognize all of the other initiatives. As we said, the ecosystem is very, very rich. So cooperation mechanisms with all of this interplay of initiatives and ecosystems is vital for the correct functioning of this guardianship of the governance, so to speak. So the weaving of all of these efforts is what's going to make the difference. So it's not just one isolated office, agency, or anything. And as you mentioned, there are other organizations dealing with this. And for example, AI for Good, which is like a subset program of ITU and all of this. And there are very specialized agencies and a lot of knowledge and a lot of efforts and resources that have been allocated for all of this. But the thing is, we should concentrate this, especially because, as we said, there's a dual use, repurposable, general purpose nature of AI. So it's very, very wide ranging. And some of these aspects might escape the mandates of the already existing institutions. So creating one that can cover everything would not be, useless expenditure. It would be very focused, thematically focused, to address a challenge that we're going to have as a society and an international community. So that's what I think is very important to kind of underscore when we're talking about these issues. And the fact that it includes an equal voice for all of the regions and all of the countries, and that there are already participation mechanisms in place for all of the other stakeholders, which are extremely relevant. That's also something to note when we're talking about the UN, kind of vis-a-vis another type of institution.
Thank you very much, Jimena. I can take one last question, and then we will need to bring this session to a close, okay? So, Carol, please.
I have more of a statement, I suppose, than a question. So we're going to end up with maybe a GDC office, a AI office, AI crosses GDC, GDC crosses AI. Is it going to be in New York or is it going to be in Geneva? Geneva is known to be more the technical place. I hope I'm allowed back into the UN building after this. But I wait to see how it all pans out.
Would someone would like to comment on that, or just take it as a remark, as a comment? Okay, so yes, okay. So I need to bring this session to a close. So my last question would be, and I just would like to hear, let's say, 30 seconds from each one of you. I mean, the panelists, not the whole participants. So what can we still do in the, let's say, the 3 weeks or more or less 1 month that's still left to help, let's say, the governments that will be attending the summit of the future? What can we still, I mean, we have been doing a lot, CTU has been talking about this, but in your opinion, what can be done? What can we still do to ensure that our Caribbean ministers participate at the summer of the future, not only with a powerful, let's say, delegation, but also to give some meaningful contribution to that summit? So 30 seconds, I would like to hear some recommendations from the panelists. Let me start with Craig, and then we go with Jimena, and finally Martin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. So, well, first, I just wanted to comment back on Martin's response of the multilateral version. Yes, I completely agree. You know that we want to keep things, to have everyone on board on this. For the GDC is still in negotiations right now. So even before the summit of the future, I think that we need to, as a Caribbean community, we need to have a common ground on what we stand for and what we need to get for our community. We need to have our policymakers understand what is vital that we should push for in this GDC process, to support the GDC process and to, write your statements and be there, as well as to come into the Summit of the Future, participate in it, and make sure our voices are heard. Right. That's it for me.
Thank you, Craig. Jimena, 30 seconds comment.
Thank you. So I second that very much. And I think it's crucial to keep participating and do raise your hand and do make your comments and voices heard through your representatives at the Summit of the Future. I will be there with the Mexican delegation. And we also share the Caribbean Sea, so in the region. So our concerns are very similar. So yes, just keep raising awareness of the fact that it's going to be very important what's decided there. And as Craig mentioned, it's still under negotiation, so nothing is set in stone. So this is the time to address it all. So the more voices, the better, because the whole point is of, again, keeping this at the UN and this forum, this very important Summit of the Future within the General Assembly, is a demonstration of that. So this is going to be a great display of multilateralism, and I look forward to seeing all of you there.
Thank you very much, Jimena. And Martin, your last comments?
Yes, thanks. Well, the nice thing, specifically in the Caribbean, is you guys do things together, because you have to, and you know that. And with that as a core, I think the recognition that governments need to work with private stakeholders, with the people themselves, may be something you can bring with you. How to bring that? Very difficult to change things that are not underway already in the 2 weeks to the summit, I would say. But a message from one of the ministers, one of the countries, or maybe of the CTU even, to ask specific attention for this point, that going forward we needed to do this together in a multi-stakeholder way, I think would be the best thing you can do between now and the summit.
Thank you very much, Martin. Let's give them a round of applause, and then we go to the next session.
positive with that delightful discussion that we had there about the UN's Global Digital Compact. We can do a better job than that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's raise the energy within the room. Thank you once again to our panelists and also to our moderator. Before we make our way into the second discussion for this afternoon, we understand that it has been 20 years of this forum, and also returning after 20 years back in Guyana, that is also a very proud moment. I know for sure Mr. Hines feels that way. So 20 years later, we recognize that we have came a long way, like I said, and as technology evolves, we must take a multi-stakeholder approach and have all hands on deck. I'm sure many of you can also agree on that. We also do look forward to the next 20 years here in Guyana and also with our Caribbean brothers and sisters as well. And we do know that it is important to contribute your ideas. I also here have Mr. Nigel Kashmir ready to take over this session, so I'll let him take it over. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for Mr. Kashmir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jennifer. And now it's your turn, really. It's a Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, so the attendees are really intended to contribute and contribute actively to the proceedings. And in this particular session, as Jennifer just mentioned, we are at our 20th CIGF. It's a milestone, and I think the congratulations are definitely due. But milestones like this, we always tend to reflect as well, okay, what we've done, and as we go forward, how would we continue as we had been going? So this is where you get to give your opinions as to how we move forward with the CIGF. Let me just bring up a sort of reminder presentation here. I lapsed in that I didn't pass it to the so basically just looking forward. And just to remind you of some of what I said on Wednesday when we began, currently what our approach is, notwithstanding we have this regional forum, in terms of trying to be more effective as regards implementing some of what we agree on here, we are engaging more with at the local level for implementation. So local ISOC chapters, local IGFs, encouraging the formation of IGFs and so on, local computer societies, trying to execute internet governance policies and activities at the national level. And that basically is, driving progressive awareness and education campaigns and other things, the development of certs and C-certs, advocacy, strengthening CCTLDs, and so on. In terms of the organization of the regional structure, this CIGF, we are moving away from, I can say we've moved away from just a CTU convened thing towards a multi-stakeholder convened regional forum. Right? A multi-stakeholder convened regional forum in the sense of having a multi-stakeholder organizing committee drawn from around the Caribbean, drawn from different stakeholder groups as well. Right? And that would include members like, maybe from the CTU, from governments, from private sector, academia, and so on. Interfacing through this CIGF medium and through the outputs of the CIGF medium with the national structures, the national IGFs and national chapters and so on. The ideal, from our point of view, is that each of our member states would develop and maintain a national IGF or some sort of national multi-stakeholder collaboration dealing with IG matters. And so that, we can get rich and constant inputs into the CIGF proceedings. So this, all I'm saying now is how we currently see it, right? As a lead up to the discussion that we want to have in 2 minutes, actually. And this is another slide I presented earlier in terms of how we're currently looking at things, continuing the thrust towards national IGFs and multi-stakeholder communities, working with Caribbean stakeholders to promote implementation of what comes out of this CIGF, strive for sustainability, continue the linkages to other IGFs beyond the national ones, like LAC IGF, UN IGF, and so on, and maybe even, this would be a growth area for us if you think it would be appropriate. There are national and regional IGFs in other parts of the world. To what extent maybe do we want to develop liaisons and collaborations with them? One of the things that the CTU is currently involved in is a SIDS IGF, and that we are trying to strengthen as we go forward. We've had 2 sessions of that so far. On an ongoing basis, we will review and agree the priority IG issues for the Caribbean as matters develop, as technology develops and so on. And we want to get smart and smarter in terms of how we engage and collaborate. So using online modes and things like that. And we did notice that, we weren't effectively measuring the impact of this CIGF. We've done a policy framework, for example, and we've sustained it through 4 editions. And one can point to, anecdotally, yes, I've seen improvement in this particular area as recommended by the policy framework, or that particular area, but we see room for improvement in measuring the effectiveness and the impact of everything that we do through the CIGF. So, in reflecting on all that and looking forward now, the question is, what do we change? What do we change in order to be more effective? And what was done was, I shouldn't say what was done. What I'm posing to this particular discussion is some questions that are intended to stimulate thought. It stimulates thought and stimulate feedback. It's not intended to limit the discussion to what's on these questions. But the end result we are looking for, essentially, is a better, more dynamic, more effective CIGF, and through that, more effective Caribbean involvement in internet governance and Caribbean influence in internet governance globally. So it's an open session. The way, one thing I thought of in terms of stimulating wide-ranging feedback, though, was I invited and kind of would call on a few colleagues from different stakeholder groups to give their thoughts. I see Mr. Tracy Hackshaw is quite anxious to make his comment. He is, of course, well, he's based in Switzerland now, so it's late for him. So maybe I'll concede and let Tracy go first, and because I'm not sure if he has a time limitation. So Tracy, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I hope you're hearing me okay. Yes?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
A bit of a noisy location, but I'm going to speak. So yes, thank you, Nigel. So I have a few points I wanted to raise, and I hope they contribute to the discussion. So this is my name is Tracy Hackshaw. I'm currently working in the UN system, but I'm also, as you may have heard, the first day part of the TT-MAG and with the CIGF, but I'm representing no particular organization in my views here. So yes, in terms of the questions that are being posed, I think all of them are good questions. But I do think there is a larger issue that I would like to put on the table as well, which I think might address or at least lead to some more questions, is whether or not this Caribbean IGF can be seen as the premier or the flagship digital event for the region in terms of bringing multiple stakeholders together to advance the future of the internet and the digital, which links the question too, going forward. And to do that, I'm just wondering if there's a way that the CIGF can bring more stakeholders from, let's call them decision makers for the time being, into the discussion, not to speak on day one, but to sit with other stakeholders like us who are here today and to engage in a conversation, one, and two, to help drive the discussion forward. Because what I think is happening in the region, I'm looking from the outside looking in these days, and I'm realizing that there's a large disconnect between what is happening at other sessions that might happen in the region. There are CTU ministerial meetings, there's CARICOM ministerial meetings, there are ECLAC sessions, sessions at the OAS, et cetera, all of these sessions that seem to be also be doing digital things. And the CIGF, which is one of the only ones that tries to bring people who are not in government in the same room, is sort of sitting outside of that framework, trying its best to have a look in. So my point and my observation is that the Caribbean IGF should find a way, as an entity, as a decision-making body, as a whatever you want to call it, to try and drive itself into the main fora of discussion and not sit on the sidelines and have a chat about issues and then let's do it again next year. And I think the document that the CIGF has produced is a step in that direction, but it'll be very useful to see something like that not just exist, but also be discussed at other events and feed into it. So not just one way out. We talk about it in a CIGF and put it out. Version 4 is out now. But now that it's out, should it not go to other sessions and have a discussion and get feedback, whether it be intersessionally, whether it be at meeting subsequent. And furthermore, the reports from the CIGF, where do they go? Should they not be discussed at meetings of other meetings, whether it be regional in the Caribbean or even Latin America and the Caribbean? I think those are the questions that for the future of the CIGF need to be answered. And I would love to see it progress in that way, from just sitting in its zone where it's discussing these particular issues, but moving more mainstream with other sessions that are happening. And hopefully the other sessions that are happening would rely on the good discussion, the good content, the expertise that is shared by other stakeholders in these events, and seek to draw upon this expertise in their own discussions. So the ministerial events, that's another multi-stakeholder event elsewhere, or it's an academic event, it draws upon what has happened here. Thanks very much.
Okay. One clarification, Tracy. When you started about making CIGF be seen as a flagship event or forum in IG. And you mentioned about bringing bringing more decision makers. What type of people you were thinking of?
So,
For example,
for example, on day one, you would have normally in your Caribbean IGF, you'd have, various high-level officials. I'm not going to name names, like ministers, that kind of thing. But they disappear. They come and they disappear, and then they might stay 3 days in another meeting and discuss, very serious digital issues. Why is it that can't also happen at the Caribbean IGF? Why can't there be, and I'm just spitballing here, a ministerial track or a high-level track at the Caribbean IGF, similar to what the UN IGF is attempting to do as well, or even a parliamentary track, which I think Carol, who's there, would champion as well. And I know the UN IGF is doing a judicial track. So they're developing, I think, in a good way at the global level, realizing the need to bring more people into the process. While it mightn't be a situation where you bring them to sit and listen to every single thing that's being said, you bring them to hear, to talk to themselves or to talk with others about topics that they are interested in. So let's say you bring the judiciary in regionally to talk about, the cybersecurity laws, and bring lawyers to talk, etc. At the parliamentary level, you bring them to talk about issues that affect, social media, censorship, whatever. See what I'm trying to say? Yeah. And then at the highest level, at the ministerial or prime ministerial level, even, they're talking about, how digital affects our country, our economy, and what we can do next. The experts are in these meetings, but they're talking to everyone else except the people who are going to be making policy. And you see them, as I say, you see them on day one, and then they vanish. So it'll be useful, I think, for the Caribbean IGF to create a framework where they can participate more fully, and then take the findings as a flagship. So this is the event that brings it all together. And then they walk into their other events, their other meetings, with that knowledge and that discussion amongst regional stakeholders, high-level officials, etc. So kind of drive the discussion at other meetings. Thanks.
All right, thank you. That, I think, is a visionary kind of a comment, because you want to see it grow from strength to strength and stature, and increase its stature, essentially. Kevin swiftly raised his hand. So, Kevin, you could probably go next.
Thanks very much, Nigel. Unfortunately, I'm unable to turn on my camera, but Kevin Swift from LACNIC. I just wanted to endorse some of the points Tracy was making there. We're already speaking to the converted here in this room, but the fact of the matter is that digital is an integral part of every development process that we are facing. At the international level, it's aligned to the SDGs. We are talking about developing society, developing the economy. And I think at this point, we really need to see some of the other players, other decision makers from ministries of social development, planning the economy, trade, and industry, industry in particular, quantify what the digital contribution is and what that sector looks like, and even legal affairs representatives. At the global level, I believe there was recognition to have greater parliamentary involvement since 2017, if I'm not mistaken, at Geneva IGF, and certainly, well, I think that was 2018, if I'm not mistaken, but certainly in 2019 in Berlin. There were the parliamentary tracks there, and I think it was well recognized that they needed to be in the conversations. And as Tracy was saying, beyond just a ceremonial role, being able to converse specifically as to what these worlds of digital plus other endeavors actually mean. I wanted to also talk briefly about the other point he raised about what do we do beyond the CIGF, and this was a poignant question for us at LACNIC at the time when we were the main secretariat for the LAC IGF. We felt that there was absolutely no traction between events, and as a matter of fact, it took us quite a while to get rapporteur reports we know for a matter of fact, no one actually reviewed the videos. And we felt it was really important to do something in between. And that was really the genesis for the Leaders program, which I initially had pitched as a particular addition to the LAC-IGF. But obviously, because of the LAC-IGF transition and the change of the bylaws, LACNIC rolled with the Leaders program, focusing on intersessional work. So one of the things with the Leaders program is that we are always aligned to the big strategic pillars being discussed at the global level, but the idea was to develop and hone research from interested parties who may not have the economic means to do so, and have this research inform processes locally, regionally, and the like, but something that would occur between internet governance events. And of course, at the internet governance events, in this case at the LAC-IGF, we always had a sort of exchange of what has been happening among these individual researchers. And we try to develop this common body of knowledge that we continue growing. So a topic such as AI, which I think is wonderful, I would say that we don't wait till the next CIGF to discuss AI, that we actually have. And apologies for missing out some of the presentations just now from Craig, but that we have, I'm just using AI as an example, but that we have continuous work that happens in between now and next year, and that those inputs feed into these various processes with various types of objectives. Some of those objectives could simply be awareness raising. Some of them could be talking about ensuring that there are safeguards and human rights within some of the proposals going forward. Some of them could just be to agitate the decision makers and showing that, hey, this is the evidence we have as to what the context and the dimensions of this problem is, and this is what we would like to see be done about it. So it's really to increase that sort of fluidity we need when it comes to digital policy making, digital development, what happens between the IGFs. I think I just wanted to share that lessons from the LACNIC perspective. Nigel, I know you're also familiar with Leaders, and it's just something I think that we could think about in the CIGF. I love the frameworks, but I'll be honest, I review the framework probably once or twice per year. So that's just my quick comment and observations. I know I spoke for a long time, so I'm going to stop now.
Thank you, Kevin. The CTU Secretariat, we tended to review it maybe at times when we are doing planning. You know, you're planning, you're doing sort of operational or strategic planning, and you say, well, what is it that we need to address from here? Lance had his hand up first, and then I'll take Tariq. Mr. Lance Hines.
I just heard Tracy, and I just heard
Kevin.
Both of them might have said this before in some form or fashion. And over the years, they would have said it. And the challenge that started when they said it then remains as they say it now. You came into Guyana this week. And apart from what we call the usual suspects in the room, I don't know how many people could tell you what internet governance is. They probably know it by today. But when you came in 2 days ago or 3 days ago, there would have been a complete lack of knowledge in terms of what internet governance is. No offense to some of those who might have picked it up, but I'm saying that by and large, it's not there. Mm-hmm. We have been around long enough to know that we live in a rarefied era where we understand it and we live it and we develop policies to act on it and so on. But it's pitched too high at the moment. It's pitched above normal policymakers here. It's pitched above many swaths of government, regardless of location. It's pitched too high. And one of the things that we're going to have to do is that before you do anything else and before you have any more high-level discussions, we're going to have to pull this down a bit, right? Even if we do things like one of the things that I had a brief discussion with the University of Ghana the other day about the possibility of introducing something like internet governance either in the School of Innovation or in the School of Computer Studies, where it'll be an elective. So you do train the trainers, and those who are doing it, this might be something that you could do. But you're going to have to start at that point in order to get the education in. Because after we go into our rocking chairs and fixing our false teeth and stuff like that, there ain't gonna be anybody else at the back to pick up the mantle and take it forward. So we're going to have to pull it back. Because the way it is at the moment, you're not getting traction, you're not getting, whether it's IGF or even ICANN, and getting involved in the ICANN multi-stakeholder consensus framework, you're getting few takers because it is pitched too high. ITU has different traction because ITU is part of the conversation. We'll say that, okay, we're going to build a lab, we're going to build a hub, we're going to bring computers, and these are tangible, you could see them, and that's where they get some success at that end. You don't get this here, you don't get it at ICANN because it is not like that. And so people are not, they're not attaching themselves to it. They're not thinking, and we've tried. And what doesn't help is that we are real high-end front-end users. I mean, a teacher would tell me that, and this is a teacher who is supposed to be molding young minds. And she told me one day that she gets her best news from TikTok. There was nothing else I could say after that. Speechless, right? Nothing else you can say. But this is the kind of reality that you're living with. So we got to bring it back. We got to bring it back. We got to go back to the education. We got to go back to catching people at an earlier age to be able to tell them what this thing is and explain to them the importance of this doing the thing. I'm sure there is work that's being done in those areas. I don't know. But I'm saying that we're going to have to pull it back to make sure that we educate people at a slightly lower level, and then when they get it, they could begin to affect our policy at a higher level. Thanks, Jim.
Follow up on that? Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm half agreeing. I think the U.S. presidential candidate is running on the slogan, "We're not going back." So I understand that you're saying pause and go back, but my view is that that kind of education and awareness doesn't have to happen, and it may not be the best place in a regional IGF for it to happen. I would love to see more national IGFs. Yeah. And I think wherever we have this CIGF, it should be preceded by a national, if the country has not had. I was chair of Barbados chapter when we had our first, second, and third national IGF. I think that's where you can meet people better, the man on the street, as it were, to talk about internet governance. And I'm not so much worried if they don't know what internet governance is. Let's have a national discussion about the internet and about technology and about how it is impacting me from where I sit. Whether I get my news from TikTok or wherever I get it from, is that a reliable source? How do you discern fake news and those kinds of things? Let's have a conversation. They don't necessarily need to all know all the communities in ICANN and what CNSO is and all of that. So there's that, right? Because I don't think we can be everything to everyone. And I believe in supporting what Tracy has said, that yes, there ought to be a high-level government track by now, because there are decisions that we'd want our policymakers to make. And I don't mind if they come from one day. I don't think you're going to get ahead of a government to come for more than a day anyhow. Or a minister to come from. And there are other places. The CTU has its ICT week and there's COTED and all of that. So there are other places, but I think, one, if we evolve this to a more multi-stakeholder model, and we do collaborate, as you see all the collaborations there on the banner, ARIN, LACNIC, TT-MAG, ISOC, Barbados, and so on. we need to strengthen that so that it is not that they're working in partnership with the CTU, but that it is a truly, in terms of planning, execution, engagement, private sector. We should have some chambers of commerce in here by now, because they're the ones who are going to drive the business on this new GTLDs, right? Because it's fine to register .Caribbean and .whatever, but it's almost like a vanity plate. Well, we have it, but how do we commercialize it? That's business we're talking. Therefore, regional chambers of commerce, national chambers of commerce, the technical community, NGOs that are dealing with women's rights, children's rights. We have a CSAM presentation. That's very much about children's rights and protecting children. It's not really about technology, it's just that the technology is now enabling all sorts of crimes or, and so on. So I don't want to say step back and let's deal with the basics. No, we have to keep moving forward. We have to move higher. We have to engage heads of government, ministers at this level. There's a space for that. But I think the grassroots awareness and education has to happen at the national IGFs, and we also, within this mechanism, support national IGFs. By now, there should have been more national IGFs. There should be sustainable. We have the Internet Society as a key partner. We have ICANN that I'm sure will put some resources behind it, and so on. So I just wanted to respond with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Tariq, go ahead.
Thank you, Nigel. So I think a lot of my points were covered by Tracy, Kevin, as well as Lance. I definitely think that we need to touch the areas such as awareness, capacity building, as well as continuous work. Now, one of the things I saw on your slide were what are the priority actions that we need to continue to sustain the CIGF. And during the discussions today and yesterday, we've heard a lot of pressing topics from the CCTLDs and their low adoption rates, and asking ourselves, why is that? As well as the GTLDs, in the sense that we don't have any applications submitted in the Caribbean, as Albert, don't know where he went, presented this morning. Oh, he's in front now. Okay, cool. So really, it's to have a continuous stream of engagement, to start working on these topics, not waiting until another forum pops up or until the next Internet Governance Forum to continue these discussions, but really to have a steady stream of parallel activities between the stakeholders to engage them and ensure that we make progress on these matters that we have raised. In addition to that, Lance, when he mentioned what is internet governance, I think that's a problem that, especially in our marketing towards the youth, face in terms of attending this. We've done a lot of promotion for this event, but the first and foremost question, apart from what is CTU, who is that, is what is internet governance and how does it affect me? And so I think that there needs to also be a lot of awareness raising and education in terms of that, and to understand that, well, internet governance is quite literally everything, and that you don't need to be a technical person to be involved. We invite everybody to come and engage in discussions. So yeah, I think that's about it from me. Oh, and one more thing. In terms of further marketing and working from the Caribbean perspective, I do as well notice on yesterday's session, opening session from LAC IGF, that there was a very low, well, non-existent participation from the Caribbean. So perhaps one of the actions that we need to take is to try to engage them again and see how we could get involved. Because how is it a LAC IGF if there's no Caribbean in there? So we're also trying from the youth side of things to engage in their youth arm, as well as at the international level through the UN youth tracks. The youth tracks at the UN level provides like a quarterly engagement session at least leading up to the annual IGF. So perhaps that's something that we could look at, as one of the examples of our ongoing stream of work. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Martin.
Yes, thank you, Nigel, and thank you for having me. I've been at multiple national, regional IGFs as well, and one thing is how many people are in the room and online, and how can you engage them? But I think the setup was very good. And if you go on, I like very much also Rodney's thinking about let's have those national IGFs stimulated as well. Just one thought. Always try to bring in one outsider who can help stir up the discussion. Who doesn't need to be me, there's many more out there, but somebody who's not from that specific community, that may surprise you. That may help you think out of the box that you're normally thinking in.
Okay. Deidre Williams, you can go ahead. Does she have to be made allowed to speak? I'm wondering.
All right.
Yes, I think I hear you now.
Great. Yes, I was very interested listening to the other suggestions. I was very happy to hear Tarek talking about CIGF, because for years and years and years, CIGF provided English translation for participants coming from the Anglophone parts of the world. And there were maybe 8 of us out of 60 or 70. And we had to lobby later to have Portuguese translation for people from Brazil who did not speak Spanish. It would make me happy to know that that link was not being dropped. But as well as expanding beyond English language, why can't we use the technology to keep us going in between sessions? That's something that has puzzled me for ages. We go and talk about internet and digital, and isn't it wonderful? But we seem to be awfully reluctant to use it to bring us together, which is what it was supposed to be all about to begin with. So, over the years, I can remember fighting with Nigel. I don't know if he remembers, years and years ago, about how important people were in terms of the technology, because the CTU at that point was about the technology. Well, now the people, the techies and the non-techies are coming closer and closer together. They live in the same world. They are affected in the same ways. So it's very important to foster that dialogue. There aren't, as far as I can see, any right answers. You've heard me fighting these few days about best practice. I dislike best practice, but good practice shared is great. So I would hope that in our online discussions to come, that we will avoid prescription, and instead of that, look for norms and standards that people can agree to together. So you've got something that really works. And I'm reading my notes, which are not very clearly written. Yes, you want real inclusion. You want some sort of means where a lot of people can each do something very small that aggregates into something significant. And I did fill in the form for the first day, the assessment. I said that it's a pity that people can't be reminded of the values of the internet when it first started. Those values have gone completely now, and with them has gone any spirit of voluntarism. But perhaps if the young people like Tarek, people like the lady I admired very much, who spoke about the legislation in Guyana. I didn't catch your name, but my goodness, I was proud of you. If now I've lost my point completely. If those people could be aware of the values that were there originally, they just might be able to refine them again. They wouldn't look the same, but something similar. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deirdre. Let's move on to Carol. Carol Roach. Oh, yes, and I saw video, so I'll take video after.
Okay, thank you. So I'm really just giving a +1 for Tariq. Oh, Lord. Denise? Deidre.
Yeah.
And with regards to using technology and having what I suppose what IGF calls intercessional work. The International Parliamentary Union, they do little workshops. They had one on AI, they had one on governance, and they do it probably like once a quarter. So it's more bringing the parliamentarians up to speed, knowledge transfer for them. I think we could probably do something like that as well, or even try to get a subgroup out of the parliamentarians to see. I think it's over 100 and something parliamentarians in the union. Do a subgroup Caribbean one and see if we can host a knowledge sharing session.
So essentially targeting specific groups and seeing and trying to do something with them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you know, people like to be grouped with each other because the conversation is more towards them. So judiciary, parliamentary, tech, universities, academia.
Okay. And I guess that's more the high level engagement as well. Okay, video.
Hi, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vijay Kissoon from Guyana. I just want to pay a tribute to Deirdre Williams, who's online. This is like, 2 decades ago, the conversation, as Lance said, we've been having this. So there was something this morning in the in the presentation of the data, in the snapshot of the research that was done. And it was interesting to see that governance had a very low priority. And I was thinking about that coming here, that you want to know about, the experts felt that the people had more concerns about other things rather than how the internet, even though it's important. And I wondered if perhaps, when that report comes out, there should be some discussion as to what's really going on in the region. Is it because in our post-plantation societies, we really feel we have no control over ourselves? Inclusivity was outside of that box zone. I know we were very keen about inclusion and gaffing with people because the technology is reaching people. And more, more citizens can actively use it and be impacted negatively by it or positively. And again, there's a sense of we have no control over our destinies anyway, so we really have no interest. And so there's a larger political question to ask, given our history of the Caribbean. And I just wondered, because I was just stunned when I saw that in the report from the experts. And I think Tariq asked, Guyana did not respond to that survey too. So that too gives another question for us, because we're also dealing with this other unknown of the oil and gas. In Guyana, we're preoccupied with it, much less taking on things like artificial intelligence and technology and so on. The second point, just to endorse, is that this kind of sectoral approach, it was very interesting today that the case study that was presented was within the justice sector. But I don't think there's anyone, I don't recognize anybody here who might have been in the forum from the justice sector. I was having this conversation with Andre about, who is the CJAS, and obviously there's interesting work going on already, which many of us techies don't even know and appreciate. So there's this And we realize that within agriculture, food security, health, we know there are conversations happening around the same issues, how AI would be used, how all of these things, how it has to be governed. So I don't know if the CTU now has to intentionally look back in the CGIF as to how you specifically look. Are there some priority Caribbean development issues that you have to go into those sectors intentionally and name them? Food security, disaster, you know, those things, and find out what, because I think there are parallel conversations happening within tech in those places, and this is just observing. I hear the call for the National Internet Governance Forum, and I would love if Guyana could have one, but I'm not sure. Maybe our young Office of the Prime Minister, Jennifer from Outreach, and Sadiq, the Internet Governance Officer, might want an I put them on the spot there to say perhaps this is a conversation we could be inspired to have, to think about what the challenges would be. And lastly, is how we're imagining the Caribbean. I believe this is still very Anglophone. This particular forum is a very Anglophone forum. So what does that mean when in other spaces we consider the Caribbean as being much larger, including Haiti, Dominican Republic, and so on. So, and again, what are the implications for that? Because in our lives, we might be including the Caribbean, the larger Caribbean outside of this. I do not know that, and I watched all this forum, and I'm curious, and I don't know, I know you have civil society there, and civil society is changing, but I'm not sure how the forum is interacting with civil society and bringing on civil society as a stakeholder. I know the SG mentioned some specific groups, and I'm just wondering, and I know that, this thing about inclusion, it has to be very intentional. I made a point on Wednesday about the disabilities. I know you're doing the youth forum already, but it's perhaps to think as one of your intersessional sessions is how you look at the issues of inclusion, because that thing with inclusivity, obviously our telecoms experts who might be informing a lot of what we're doing have little or no interest in inclusivity, it seemed, from that snapshot that came forward this morning in the survey. And I said, when we see the report, it should be interesting to help guide us, right? So, thanks.
Yes, thank you. I think in our movement to measure better the impacts, that we'll do more analysis on the participation, and that will inform future actions, as you say, with inclusion. It has to be very intentional, as you say. So we have to analyze how we focus on it. Jennifer is one of those persons, apart from myself, who was there in the room and participating at CIGF #1. So happy to hear from you.
Thank you, Nigel. I thought you were going to give a bio and tell people my age. Thank you. But yes, I am one of the people who was there in the primary thinking. I'm going to make it short, I think, because I agree with most things said in the room, including even from Lance. We don't usually agree, but today is a good day. I'm kidding. I think that one of the things that's important for me is context, and we have to I'm delighted, first of all, let me congratulate the CTU for pulling this off for 20 years. It's not an easy thing in this region. Secondly, I want to say that I think we need to keep the CIGF but go back to the original, well, not the original ideal, but look at context in the sense that there are several things being done by several people. I think that we need to one of the things that Lance said is one of the things that keeps me up at night is that as practitioners in the region, I don't think we do enough on a day-to-day basis to demystify all the language in this spectacular sector. So we walk along on cloud nine, having a good time with APIs and all of those things, and everybody else is dumbing it out at the bottom. So I think part of the, one of the things I'm going to agree with Lance is, it's not that we dumb it down, because from a personal perspective, I came to the IGF for many years because I learned a lot. You can't learn while you're doing in this region, because you're doing 50 things and you need to learn. But I think we need to look at it again and really crystallize. I do not want another 3-day session. This was hard. A Friday afternoon in the Caribbean is impossible. We're all tired. We're thinking about drinks. We're thinking about the weekend. So again, planning, context, and everything is important. But the point is that we need to perhaps just crystallize on a day where we look at the global perspectives and then we deal with our what I'll call indigenous, for want of a better word, issues on day 2. We are fast, as I looked at the reports here, and I look at reports every minute of my life, we are fast, unfortunately, becoming the digitally invisible, whether we like it or not. We are, our names are not in those reports, etc. I was happy to see that the CTU gave some input on the digital compact. The digital task force, through me, gave something. You don't see it in any of the reports from the UN. So we are becoming invisible and digitally invisible, and we have to, I think, take care of our own business. One of the things that I didn't like, and I just say this is at the empirical level, but one of the things that I didn't like, and that is coming into our ethos in the region, is that we continue to have stacked meetings and then tell people they can't speak, or you're taking 2 or 3 questions. This, we have to decide if this is the forum which will inform us and help people to be informed. We have to make the space in that day's activity to be able to have the questions that are burning on people's minds. If that's not going to happen, we need to be able to inform the process by sending reports, sending things before, sending things early, so that people know. I heard the issue bandied about national IGFs. Please quote me correctly if you're going to quote me. I don't support that, because 10 years ago we had a mandate from the heads of government that every country should have a national committee to deal with. It was ICT then. The nomenclature has changed, and that is what I support, because if we keep watering down in this small region with sometimes 5 practitioners, 50 committees, we're not going to get anywhere.
Sorry, I didn't hear that too well. Each region should have
a national committee to deal with ICT. That time it was ICT. So I think if we still push for that, the IGF issues and that type of thing will come up, and the member states will get an opportunity to ventilate there, and then come here perhaps at the larger regional meeting to really learn and ask the questions that they need. A lot of the good from the IGFs in the first 5 to 7 years was the opportunity to network with people who you would never meet again in life, or probably would never meet outside of these shores. And so I encourage you to try to do that again. And we really need to interrogate the agenda. I heard several suggestions around the room. I'm not going to replicate what people said, but the last thing I want to say before I forget is we continue to, well, after this room, which I think, as somebody said, you're speaking to the converted already, I would hope that the CTU would open up itself to having probably a webinar sometime before the year ends, to ask the region and other people how they feel about this process and what we should do about it. Because those of us here in the room who are, as you said, converted, will probably come back next year. I won't come back happily if I see it 3 days and, at a certain level, etc. But we will probably come back. So I think it's important, as Vidya mentioned, with the evolving of our civil society, and perhaps getting easier conversations through that civil society body, that we come out into the open and ask questions of the intended audience as to what they would like the IGF to look like in the next X years. I think the last point is that, again, we probably said it and I probably said it. We need to go back and look at what the raison d'etre was in 2025 or whenever we started.
Yeah.
It can't be the same, but I think we need to be able to look at that, interrogate ourselves, and come back out with something better, which really services every single soul. That somebody can find something on the agenda of what is being done to really say, let me go and sit in on this session and be educated or whatever. There are several other thoughts in my mind. If you do have the open webinar, I will come back to speak on them. Last thing is that I make the point about CTU keeping it at a regional level because the CTU is a regional organization and you have a certain remit. Again, we have the quarrels in the region about everybody doing everything, and that is something that you need to be mindful of. But I make the point, and I made it before, about reporting, and it's not a light comment. Everybody rolls their eyes about the Secretariat and says all we do is reporting and meetings, but that is what keeps the beating heart of the regional integration movement going. If you didn't know what happened last week in a community council meeting or whatever, how would we know that we're not repeating something that has already been done? So reporting from this forum and similar forums is particularly important because that is what will help the member states to say, okay, somebody is feeling my pain, and perhaps we can talk about it and deepen it and then move and roll it up to the this regional one whenever it comes around. So thank you.
Thank you. Before I let you go, though, what is the distinction you make between a national committee for ICT and a multi-stakeholder structure like a national IGF?
I'm not making the distinction, and I haven't really thought about it. That's a good question. But the intent behind what was mandated was a multi-stakeholder committee because we were very sure, and they were very sure at that level, that they're not even reaching into civil society, and private sector was very, I wouldn't say reluctant, the private sector is busy doing business. So they wanted the member states to really pull those bodies together and have the discussions there, trash them out, and then the regional organizations and processes would do the rest of the work. So that you would have to, it would roll up, it would be a rolling system, but there was no distinction. It was supposed to be member states, public sector, private sector, and civil society in every member state.
Right. Okay, understood. Okay, so if we get better at getting that mix together, I think it would help to address what you've said. Cook, yes.
Thanks for that, Jennifer.
I'm just noticing that we are over our scheduled time, but please.
Yes, yeah. I'll be short, and although, well, I should start by saying that I agree with what all I've heard before, so I won't repeat on any of those points that I have. However, I do want to talk about the Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum.
Yes.
Because I do see that, if we're looking at the next 20 years, I do see the expansion and the sustainability of what I would call the youth arm of the Caribbean Internet Governance to be what is needed. If it is, we are to see an internet governance or digital governance within the next 20 years. And that can also, I guess, in encouraging the national IGFs, encourage also a youth arm in those IGFs as well, because comment was made earlier in terms of getting to the general public, getting to those who might actually be used as vehicles to channel this discussion on internet governance. If you get to the youth, then they'll get to their parents, they'll get to their grandparents, they'll get to their community around them, and then you can have that discussion and you can build from there. So when we have them engaged now, in the next 10 to 20 years, they'll be the ones that will be replacing us and be knowledgeable to do so. Also, in terms of the opportunities for the youth arm of the CIGF to engage with its peers, I think there are existing resources and expertise that they can tap into that are not originally geared towards that audience, but it can be tailored towards that audience. For example, there's the ITU cyber drills that happen every year. and it's a practical exercise, but it's more geared currently towards professionals. But there may be opportunities for a similar, I guess, version of it that could be considered for, the youth of society, so to speak. And with these IGFs, the youth IGFs, they could be used as a vehicle to get that, I guess engagement or involvement of the youth of society.
Right.
Particularly those interested in ICTs, and of course, those who may not know they have an interest in ICTs, but may be encouraged to do so thereafter.
Right.
And the last point I had, I'm encouraged by the impact assessment that you had down as one of the action items coming out of the, I guess, look back at the last 20 years of the CIGF. And I do hope that that could be done not just at a regional level, but a national level as well. So more so the involvement of the national IGFs in that impact assessment as well, where applicable.
Okay, so impact assessments at national levels as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'll leave it at there for now. Thanks.
Thank you very much. But I'll say thank you very much to all who have spoken here. I mean, we've taken some notes and highlights here. I think there is support for trying to move the CIGF to bigger and better things. In increasing the engagement and the strategy possibly for stimulating more national IGFs, but the key point being stimulating the gathering of the multi-stakeholders at the national level as well. So I will thank you all for that. What I will do is we will compile and kind of organize the feedback, and it will be a part of the report of the 20th CIGF. Jennifer mentioned reporting. One thing I'm proud to say is that one can find a report of each CIGF on the CTU webpage related to internet governance. Actually, there might be one missing, but in the main, they are there. What we could possibly do is maybe highlight it some more, or aspects of it, to focus and communicate it to relevant stakeholder groups that we are targeting. Hey, we are dealing with, or the CIGF dealt with this particular issue of relevance to you, and this is the idea that came out. It might just be for information's sake. It might be to get some feedback or action or lobbying for some action. But we could probably try to use the outputs from the CIGF to better effect. And the point is also taken about maybe more intersessional work, using the technology for the purpose, whether it's a webinar or, well, what we tried initially was an online discussion forum, right? It still exists, but people have to think and want to go to a forum, to an online discussion forum. So the activity has never been high, but it has, waned. It has varied. It has varied depending on what topics might be there. So that's just another one of the options. So I'll say thank you all for the feedback, and we'll process it. And I think take on board as much as we can within the resources that are available. So we'll take a break now, and when we come back, it'll be open mic time, where we will try to catch up with any open questions and take any other issues that you might have. Thank you.
24 years, they need to be looking back. Where we came from, where we want.
If you can kindly rejoin us as we commence this afternoon's open mic. Thanks to those who are staying with us online as well. And this is just a kind reminder for you to fill those evaluation forms for day 1 and day 2 as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again. I hope you had a refreshing coffee break. It is well deserved, I do believe, and our head table can say that as well. We're ready to continue. I'll hand the mic right over to the head table for the open mic. I do believe that we have some new faces joining us this afternoon. Let's have the discussion, let's have the ball rolling, and let's have a great day to the third Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. Over to the head table.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And yes, folks, this is our open microphone segment. Granted, we just had an open session where we looked at the future of the CIGF, but this one is basically for any comments you might have on the CIGF, on this particular edition, on internet governance in the region or whatever. We basically want to hear from you in terms of your experience, whether the lunch was good or, it's an open mic. So we're waiting for your comments.
And let me encourage those of you, in particular the young people, if you haven't yet made your voice heard, this is the perfect opportunity. And it is open mic. This is not about the future of the CIGF. It could be, whether TikTok is an authentic source of news. You could ask that question. You could, whatever is of your concern to you, feel free to raise it here. Open mic. Comment, question, anything.
Okay, Lance Hines decided to open the batting. I'm not sure he could take fast bowling, but let's see.
It is good to see CTU back after 20 years. This is where I think we started, and with all the dreams and the bright ideas and going forward, and the fact that all credit to CTU, there are not many there are few organizations you can count on your fingers that continue, apart from your CARICOM organs and others who have been around and lasted. CTU certainly is an organization, and especially in the field that we're in, which has never always gotten the sort of traction that we would like. And the fact that CTU has withstood that and continues to be an organization driving the policy that we need, just for me is to offer my congratulations and kudos for that. And of course, I'm still around, and all of us are still around, so we will continue to support CTU in the work that they do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Lance. You, as they say, you work in the vineyard, and it's always good to know their efforts are appreciated. Okay, we are still open. Yes, one of the young people that is
Hello again,
around.
everybody.
Yes, please.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. At every event that I get the chance to speak...
Could you say your name again, please?
Oh, sorry, my name is Anelia Bacchus. Right. So at every event that I get the chance to speak, I always have one plight. And I know that every older, and anybody that is in the 40s, 50s, they will always tell you, keep at it, keep reading, keep studying, keep applying yourself. And those are good things to tell young people. But I think that sometimes we fail to realize, or the older generation fails to realize, that sometimes if they were to actively play a role in shaping someone's future, that their progress will be faster. So what I'm trying to say, as I would always say in any event, it's that there should be a bridging of the gap, whereas somebody that is older, that has more knowledge, doesn't just say, go read, apply yourself, but they take that opportunity to invest their wisdom into that person through mentoring them. So I think with what you guys are doing, you're talking about internet governance. Yes, there's youths that are going to study. There are youths that are going to apply themselves in whatever way they can. But I think you should have, in some way, mentorship programs, not just something that you do once a year or every 5 years. It should be something that is actively done, so that in that way you see progress faster. The youth catches up to you faster.
Thank you very much for that suggestion. And I'm going to point squarely at Tariq over there, who has been doing a lot of work. We had Nia who spoke as well, and she's the youth envoy in the CTU. And we've been, for that very reason, I think in one of the videos I talk about the next generation of young people who are to take over from us. This is the third Youth IGF. Again, we look at the formulation of the CYIGF. We don't want it to be an initiative of the CTU. We want it to be an initiative of the young people with the support of the CTU. And in my mind, I see a youth arm of the CTU in much the same way as you have a youth parliament. And that they will support, work along with the CTU in the hosting of our meetings, even with the ministers, with the executive council members. So there's a huge role, definitely, for young people. Whatever the recommendations coming out of the youth network, including internships, we do internships on an annual basis. We would love the opportunity and scope to increase those opportunities for the young people. We supported and fought hard to get some of the some young people from the region. I think there were about 14. And again, that's where I met Tariq in the Generation Connect initiative of the ITU in Kigali, Rwanda. And the ITU also has a number of youth initiatives that we try to expose our region's young people to. And so thanks for that suggestion. We will take note, and we will ensure that we push a little harder, working along with Tariq and the Youth Network to give more opportunities for young people and for their mentorship and development. Thanks.
It seems like, sometimes we tell the youth, oh, just go for it, do it on your own. But now I'm seeing here, as well as at the Global IGF, they want you to still at least hold the pinky finger, which is good because, you need this cross-generational connection. I don't know if Tariq...
Actually, Tariq, why don't I invite you up here?
Yeah.
Come up here.
I don't know, are you a part of the... Tariq? Are you a part of the Youth IGF working group? Right. So they're going to put forward, or they have put forward for the Global IGF to approve a mentorship program, and they've they have a document which they want the MAG to approve. So once that is, or if it is approved, then it's something that the NRIs can jump on. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit to it, if you're able, Tariq. This is the mentorship from the working group.
Actually, Carol, we only joined the working group about a month ago, so I don't have much knowledge on that. But what I could say, as we're on the topic of the youth track at the global level, is we have also put forward, on the 20th, which was the day before we got into here, I think, there was a youth-led event at the Asian Pacific IGF. And so one of the initiatives that we're probably considering for the next Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum is to invite that youth track to come and have a session here. So that way we, also not just target the Caribbean audience, but bring in outsiders as well to see and join and, understand what our discussions are like. Thank you.
Okay, the floor is still open. I saw a hand flash up just now, but it's down.
While you determine, while we wait for the next person, I didn't want to forget. I don't think we have a formal vote of thanks, so I don't want to close without acknowledging the support of Jolie McPhee, who has been working with us tirelessly to ensure that we stream the 20th CIGF, and he's been long in the game. We talk about going all the way back. Jolie helped, supports all the ISOC chapters and so on in streaming. When I chaired Barbados ISOC chapter, he was there to help us stream professionally and get the word out. And he's been able to continue doing so with the kind support of Vince Cerf. So I wanted to publicly acknowledge the work that Jolie McPhee has been doing. Yes, with the support of Vince Cerf. And of course, all the partners I spoke of earlier in the week, the TT MAG, the Internet Society chapters of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Barbados, and Trinidad and Tobago, the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise, the usual suspects, of course, ARIN, LACNIC, ICANN. And I think in the spirit of multi-stakeholderism, we want to see more logos on this banner, and not at the bottom, at the top. So it's not the Government of Guyana CTU, but it is a real multi-stakeholder in true sense in terms of its planning, execution, and its ongoing work. So I just wanted to say that before. So go ahead.
Okay, it's still open. Actually, I promised that I would take a look at the Q&A to see if there were any unanswered questions. I'm not sure if this one was answered, and I think we'd have to call on Andre Griffith to help us with this one. It is from Melissa Buchun. It says, most rural areas don't have stable internet access, and also it's very difficult to gain access to villages. What procedures are in place? Well, let's say procedures, but maybe it's plans in terms of rural areas for connectivity. Anything you want to say on that, Andre?
Sorry, good afternoon. Yeah, this came up earlier. I think there was a question on the floor, and we went into some of the details of the government's direct provision of services to precisely those communities. Once again, there exists a project under which I think some 17 or 18 million US dollars was budgeted and approved to fund the rollout to, I think, over 200 communities. And in each of those communities, you would have had at least one access point, 3 access points, sorry. One at the school, one at an ICT hub, and one at a health center. So that project is underway, and that is, I think that is the direct response on the part of the government of Guyana, executed through the National Data Management Authority and that hinterland and poor and remote communities project, which is out of the Office of the Prime Minister. We fully expect that as time goes along, the private operators will move to augment those initial efforts to, as far as possible, extend rural and hinterland coverage with mobile networks. Sorry, mobile networks, and indeed, where possible, fixed broadband. But you would recognize that serving those communities, or the issue of universal service or universal access has got to depend not on any one technology, but you're going to have fiber in some places, you're going to have terrestrial fixed wireless in other places, and satellite has to be a part of that mix. So that's really where you see the evolution going. But for the immediate, as we speak, there is a rollout of public internet access points in almost all of the communities, but over the medium to long term, we expect the private operators to complete the picture, so to speak.
Thank you.
Head table, if I may as well, just to follow what Mr. Griffith said, we were speaking about rural communities, but also through the government of Guyana, there is also the public internet access points that offer free services in the urban communities as well. So that's given for persons that we try to offload any amount of expense so they could go to certain areas, have access, take their devices, electronic devices, and be connected as well. As much as we try to focus on the rural communities, we also give the urban areas as well some amount of satisfaction and also relief with the internet access.
Just to circle back on Carol's question as well as Ms. Bacchus, I think, yes, I got it right. So while I can't speak to the UN IGF mentorship initiatives, I do also want to mention that there are a number of initiatives from the Internet organizations such as ICANN with their Next Gen, as well as their fellowship programs. Albert Daniels is here. You could probably talk to him after for some opportunities for both students as well as young professionals. I believe ISOC also has a young development program that offers mentorship and training, as well as Lideris, which is our LACNIC program.
Yeah, leader? Yes.
Yes. The LACNIC Lideris program, which allows you to do a short research project as well through mentorship with a seasoned professional. Some of them have included Nigel as a mentor in the past. And we had some youth from Trinidad and Tobago who participated in that. So there are some more localized point contacts that exist right now that you could also reach out to. And yeah, those that are here, we could set you up. Albert?
Thanks, Tarek. I was actually preparing to go across to that table to tell them about the fellowship program and the Next Gen program. So, well, I only see ladies across there, but ladies, if you have 5 minutes, after we're done, I will come to that table and just introduce you to the Next Gen program for students and the fellowship program, which are programs which involve mentorship, but can get you physically to an ICANN meeting where you can participate and learn more about how you can participate.
And permit me to just say that I actually forgot that with the kind support of the Telecoms Authority of Trinidad and Tobago represented here, we were able to support the participation of Tariq as a young person in the World Radio Conference in Dubai. And if we had at least 3 or 4 more regulators, or in fact any entity willing to put the resources, we would have been able to take a lot more, right? And I had some pushback, people saying the conference is too technical for a young person. When are they going to learn? When are they going to contribute and support, if not now?
And I'll just add to that Tariq thing by saying that it was open to young people from the Caribbean, and we had applications from the Caribbean, and there was a selection process, right? So it's not just Trinidad and Tobago, right? So we are trying to create opportunities for young people from the Caribbean to have appropriate experiences. Thanks.
Hi there, Martin again. I'm also teaching some of the online courses by Internet Society Foundation on internet governance. And one of the most effective ones was actually last month. And it was a group of Asian Pacific people that were also supported to go to the Asian Pacific IGF. The percentage of participation, the dedication to the work was even higher. So what you can do is maybe for next time, maybe even work with Internet Society Foundation or set up your own online course to prepare people to be as effective as possible here to train them, to give you the opportunity to really dive in. And then if technical issues come up, it's not scary because you can park it. You know where it fits. If governance issues come up, same thing, legal issues, whatever. So we can really prepare well, and the good thing about the Internet Society is they will be willing to share that. And maybe they were even willing to sponsor a course online in preparation for the next IGF.
And yes, and if we didn't acknowledge it, and I don't think I said it, but the Internet Society is supporting this CIGF. So, that suggestion in terms of preparation, I think we can, in the future, use the resources for exactly that purpose.
Video.
Thanks very much. And in the spirit of open mic, I just wanted to just switch. This morning, in this discussion about law, there was a brief discussion about law and concerns about the law on human rights, and that the Guyana legislation might be stifling human rights. I think I just wanted to add to. There was, I think we had an interesting moment where when the bill was read, that particular cybercrime bill was read, our society realized that there are particular clauses in the bill about sedition, etc., which would have been stifling freedom of speech. And whilst that conversation was happening, I went back to the Act, download the Act, read the Act, and I realized that clause had been removed in the discussion because of the pressure from civil society. And, so I think because we were online, and just in case people think, it was an important time for us to be vigilant, because people would not, as we don't think we think these things might be technical and not affect us and so on. But we had to read and see. And I believe recently, and I might stand corrected, I know a lot of the offenses under the Cybercrime Act have been in the context of perhaps things like revenge porn and so on, gender-based violence. So, but again, that we have to be vigilant, be mindful, and be aware, because our human rights framework has to be, we have to be mindful of our human rights framework as well. In all of these discussions. So I know that concern was raised, but I know as a citizen, I feel fairly confident that we dealt with that, and that we have, I think the avenue, I think Andre was saying, we should talk to our legislators and so on, but that was the thing, that we have to really remain engaged as citizens, because we will never realize what is happening. Lance brought up the age-old discussion about intellectual property in Guyana, and that's going to be a never-ending conversation. I just want to acknowledge the presence of Ray Wiltshire, who is the guy who is filming us here. He's actually a filmmaker who's been producing films in this current intellectual property desert that we're in. But these are just some of the things are evolving, things are changing, and it's so many different dimensions. And I hope that with the resources that are available, that we understand that we have to involve other people in these discussions and have perhaps specific discussions to help us understand some of these things. How do we protect our rights with all of this that is going on, and not end up being further oppressed or so?
Thank you. Let me see. I'm not seeing any hands online here. This is a new one. There was a question from Guadeloupe. I didn't see this before. In fact, it just came for 4:15. Since the beginning of June, we've seen a resurgence of DDoS attacks in the Caribbean. Paradoxically, monitoring tools show us that the attacks come from everywhere except the Caribbean. Couldn't we have our own addressing systems as a good student and thus avoid all these attacks? Well, unfortunately, the internet is a global network of networks. So I don't think addressing alone would protect one if you want to be on the global internet. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on that. I mean, yeah.
Well, you didn't see me because I'm sitting behind you. I hear the comment, and in some ways it makes sense, but it's like, if I hide, if I duck, they won't see me and I won't get hit. Don't count on it on the long run. Prepare for being as sturdy, as secure and as stable as you can be by adopting modern internet standards, by adopting good practices.
What I want to comment on is the fact that that comment came from a French territory in English. And this is one of the types of situations that ICANN is trying to address every time that we speak about inclusivity. When you go to an ICANN meeting, there's translation in 6 United Nations languages and Portuguese, because what the organization attempts to do is lower the bar enough so that everyone, every stakeholder from every part of the globe can actually participate. This is why we introduced internationalized domain names. Domain names in scripts other than what we are accustomed to, A to Z, 0 to 9. And I think even from a Caribbean perspective, we need to drill a little bit deeper into that issue. In Lacralo, for example, the issue of language. Who are we talking about when we speak about the Caribbean? Does it include the French Caribbean? Does it include the Dutch Caribbean? Is that something that we should be paying attention to? So I think these are all issues that we need to bring to the surface so that they are addressed. Betty Fauster has been a perennial participant in ICANN. She's from Guadeloupe. I met her many years ago at a computer something in the Dominican Republic. But French territories like Martinique and Guadeloupe are considered Europe. And even within ICANN, they are put in a different category to the rest of the Caribbean. I can see Martinique from my home, which is St. Lucia, my second home, for those who think I'm Guyanese. Yeah, but I think the whole issue of language and culture and territory is something that we also need to pay some attention to.
Seems like Kevin Swift responded in Creole on the chat. So maybe we're getting there.
Well, I would also say on the issue of DDoS, and of course we dealt with that topic specifically on in the GFCE facilitated workshop on DDoS attack mitigation. But it is clear that we have a lot of work to do in terms of implementing good practice, implementing standards across the board, leveraging initiatives like manners and kindness, and so on. So we do have a lot of work to do. A lot of that is falling as we move forward with SHRN and OSEPA from the CTU's perspective. Of course, not that we can or even have the capacity to do it ourselves, but we want to be able to leverage what we call, we've developed this project called the Caribbean Internet Resilience Project. And part of what we've started to do is the DNS Observatory to look at the standards that have already been implemented to mitigate against cyber threats. And with the right resources, we think we can move that forward. In particular, taking into account some of the recommendations coming out of the GFCE session yesterday. Thanks.
I see Deirdre Williams. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes. First of all, I'm glad that Albert repeated again the need to understand that not everybody in the Caribbean speaks English. But on another note, this morning, when I got up, I was looking at the news on the internet, and three things caught my attention. They were things that were based in the UK because no. They were not things. The problem was in the UK. The thing itself was not based in the UK. The first one was a suicide site where people were being informed about how to commit suicide and how to find a companion with whom you could commit suicide. It was causing tremendous grief, and it wasn't in the UK. Access to that website, I'm sure, is available down here. We've talked about child pornography. I find it an enormously painful topic, not least because we chase pornographers. But I asked yesterday, how often are the children rescued? Nobody's given me an answer about that yet. And that happens here too. We saw the information, was it from UNESCO or ITU yesterday afternoon? Those sites are not necessarily in the Caribbean. And the other one, the third one I saw this morning, was about Northern Ireland, which happens to be where I grew up. And it was about housing sites. And it was about how two of them had amalgamated, and now they were controlling housing prices because there was nobody else. Somebody was trying to set up an alternative, but it hadn't happened yet. That can happen here too. That can happen here very easily indeed. So I think that we need to start forgetting that we are on the edge of a world and start remembering that we are slap in the middle of it, and that the bad things that happen other places happen in this place as well. Thank you.
They do indeed. I think on the victims statistic that you mentioned, the victims question that you mentioned, how many get rescued. I think there was a comment from the presenter yesterday in terms of the number. I can't remember if it was a percentage or a number that she mentioned, but it was the minority. Certainly was the minority of the cases presented, if I remember correctly. I don't see any more hands right now, and we're probably at our schedule. Well, in fact, we passed our scheduled time. Yes, it's 4:30 now. All right. We do have a hand, Matthew Cohen, and I think he's from one of those French territories. Matthew, please go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I just wanted to thank everybody, obviously, for this 3 days, which have been very interesting as always. I'm based in Martinique. I have a distinctly British accent because I'm from the UK originally, but I've been here over 20 years now. I kind of wanted to echo a number of thoughts about inclusion, particularly from the non-English speaking Caribbean. I know that the Caribbean is split up in terms of the kind of organizations like CARICOM and so on and so forth, and those kinds of structures dictate a little bit of how some of those things happen. But I do think it would be very useful and very helpful to have a lot more reach out to the non-English speaking organizations, despite the difficulties that were so rightly highlighted about, obviously, Martinique, Guadeloupe, French Guiana, and also St. Martin and St. Barts are considered Europe. And so there are difficulties along that. Difficulties, in my view, are only opportunities to do something about that and maybe see how a lot of the things can be done in a much more collaborative and collective manner. So really, I think if I've got one thing to say, I think one of the things that I'm particularly sensitive to is how little data there is. And I'd echo a lot of what was said earlier today in the earlier session about having access, or at least being able to develop that data so that we can have a lot more visibility on things. And sometimes that data has to come from outside the territory, or at least outside the immediate territories, to make sense of that. I think Thierry in Guadeloupe was getting to that. I think central to his question, I think, is a lot of the data. So how can we, what things are we lacking? What's the gap analysis there that can be done? I myself, for the last 5 years or so, have been trying to be as active as possible on internet governance and being a lot more involved in ARIN, but following along, well, obviously, with IGF and some of the IGFs around, despite me being from only in Martinique, but trying to be interested and see how I can bridge that out. So here's my kind of reaching out, saying, holding out the hand, saying, what is it I can do? I have quite a lot of contacts as well throughout Martinique, Guadeloupe, and Guyana. French Guiana, sorry. And so it would be something that I would be very much willing to do and very much motivated to do. So if there's anything I can do to kind of help bridge those gaps, I speak French and English. I understand Creole. I don't speak it very well, but I understand. So that's it. That's really what I'd like to say. Thank you for putting this on. Keep doing it. 20 years. I'd hope to be alive in the next 20 years and be at the 40th. So here's to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we take the point on inclusion, definitely. All right, so I think we'll probably bring the open mic to a close at this point. You're seeing a hand? Yes, there seems to be.
Yes, yeah.
Colin?
Hi.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry. So, Albert, we just want to say that the Guyanese here have been so impressed by and inspired and so on, and ashamed that we don't have a National Internet Governance Forum. That we've just been chatting here, and we think we'd like to convene the first one, Lance and Andre and Jennifer and Sadiq and Marsley and Ghosh and so on. So I was just asking people here, we just want to use this space to say that we have to just get logistics. But if you want to leave your contact details with Marceline, who is here in her own capacity, not as NDMA, she told me, right? So just for that on record. So please come and leave your contact details here. And once we convene, we will get to convene and get back out, because we think after this forum, we should go back to, it's something that we have to think about doing seriously. And so if anybody is interested, it doesn't have to be a techie, it's not a techie forum as we're learning, right? So just to put that down and to say, yeah, that's what we hope. So hopefully there'll be a Guyana IGF report at the next Caribbean. Yeah, we have to manifest it. So there will be a Guyana IGF.
Round of applause.
Right, Lance? Yeah? Your report against the Guyana IGF. At the Caribbean IGF. And if there are other Caribbean people listening who don't have IGFs, we hope you will go and do the same, right? And thank you, Marcin, for agreeing to do that. Right, so this is the person to come.
And that's really good. And I honestly believe that a national IGF in Guyana would be like an IGF on steroids, right? Given the geographic makeup, I could see it. It doesn't have to be here. It can go out into the community, but we can talk. Happy to help and support. There's a newly minted ISOC chapter, as far as I understand. They can be a key stakeholder, and of course, we're here to help as well. But we are in the wrap-up session now, so.
Yes, thank you very much, SG. Essentially, at this point, if I look at my agenda, it says conclusions and next steps. So we've come pretty much to the end of the 3 days of our CIGF. We've done some of what we usually do in terms of getting liaison statements from our regional IGFs, greetings from the various partners who put this thing together. The Youth IGF, happy to have had the third Youth IGF here, and they examined multiple different topics. We had a day that was curated by the Global Forum for Cyber Expertise through Representative Mr. Martin Botterman. And that was yesterday, where we dealt with internet standards, the most technical day, one would say. We dealt with the technical standards and came up with some very good ideas, in fact, as to how to spur the implementation of these standards in the region to improve the resilience of our internet. All right. We got some presentations from the UNODC and also Meta about data for good. And it makes you realize that the value that one can derive from seemingly the most mundane bits of data. And then today we looked at some of the hot topics in internet governance, in particular AI, again, internet resilience and cybersecurity, and digital economy, where we looked specifically at the ICANN GTLD program, and the GDC, the Global Digital Compact, was also examined, as well as what we had, I guess, a very short visioning session for the CIGF. Every CIGF, we tend to have some sort of a workshop, and that one could say was our workshop there, where we envisioned where we wanted to take the CIGF to go forward. What would happen next, actually, is we have quite a short window to get the report done this time. So within a month's time, today is the 23rd, I would say by that time in September, we should have completed the draft. We should have completed actually the report of the 20th CIGF and posted it. So I'll invite you to look there for the summary of the overall discussions and the outcomes, including the action items coming out of our work yesterday and out of our visioning session today. And I'll depend on the IG community in the Caribbean, essentially, to help keep us honest at the CTU Secretariat by supporting the active follow-up of the various action items. And if you're not seeing action being taken, or if you want to assist or support the actions that we proposed out of this forum, we'll also be happy for that assistance. So that's what I would say you can expect in the very near term. The specific actions we would have to prioritize in terms of our own resources as to how much we could, how much resources we could put on this item as opposed to that one. But we are inviting you to engage with us on any matters, right? You can engage via the website, you can engage via emails, and it's quite simple, CIGF@ctu.int for CIGF issues. All right, or you pretty much would have our contacts. You could contact and communicate with any of us. So I would like to thank everybody who participated in person and online. I'm happy to see that the Guyanese and see and hear that the Guyanese attendees were inspired enough to spawn a plan for Guyana IGF, and I really do look forward to getting your report at the 21st CIGF. Yeah. Yes. At the 21st CIGF, and actually we have had an agreement to host from Cuba, who is a CTU member, and as far as inclusion is concerned, I think that would be a tangible demonstration of our efforts to include all the Caribbean, not just the English-speaking Caribbean. So the plans are quite preliminary right now, but we, and to make that happen, we definitely would have to have language translation and all that sort of stuff. So it will take some more resources, and but we have a year's notice. So let's see how we can make that happen. So hopefully we'll be able to get a report from the Guyana IGF at the 21st CIGF, and we will begin implementing some of the flagship type ideas that were given at this afternoon session. So let me stop here and probably let SG Taylor say a few words.
Well, I won't say much because we've already been chastised for working late on a Friday. So, so let me just express my appreciation to the gentleman to my right, because without him, this would not have happened, and it would not have happened in the manner. So please, a round of applause for Mr. Andre Duver. So while it is not a government forum, very often we do need the support of government to help us defray the costs of hosting and so on. And so we're able to do that with the kind support of the Telecoms Agency under the Office of the Prime Minister. So we've had a long 3 days of talking. I just want to express my appreciation for all of you who've flown from far and from near, who've spent the 3 days with us, who's given up your time. I want to sincerely thank our mistress of ceremony, Jennifer, for doing an excellent job, and to our engineers, camera people, everything that, a round of applause. I was watching on all of the platforms. I was on Facebook, I was on YouTube, I was on the ISOC streaming, and it looked very professional, so it was very well done. And so on that note, I will hand over to Andre as well for just a few closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. First and foremost, there's one slight correction. This event did have the absolute support of Government of Guyana. We did have it was in fact the Cabinet which very early on gave us the go-ahead to do this and approve the budget. And even when we were overtaken by the events of the NTC, the resources that were needed to come to this venue were readily, the decision was readily approved by PM. So feel assured and rest assured that the CTU, we are a member of the CTU, and the CIGF continue to enjoy the full support of Government of Guyana. And the Telecommunications Agency, of course, is pleased to be associated with this. I wish to echo without necessarily repeating the thanks that you have given to the various stakeholders and partners who have come together to put this on. It only remains for me to thank the CTU itself. I know you would not have thanked yourself. Please let me do that for you. The one that I will duplicate is thanks to all of the participants here in person and online. The one thing I would like to say and to leave us with, this very last initiative that Vidya spoke to, which is to try to get people in the room to come together to see if we can have independent actors just come treat with the technology, treat with the issues that confront us as a society in a neutral manner, especially the young people. You may have come to this conference. It might be billed as a technical conference, but I can tell you, when we go to things like, for example, the World Radio Communications Conference, which deals with issues of broadcasting, what spectrum, radio frequency spectrum to allocate to different services. Probably 4 out of every 5 persons in the room is an attorney, not an engineer. Right, so when we go, those things, when we go to do training on regulation, the people who are conducting the training to us, they are economists, they are attorneys, they are people with MBAs, and so on. So this is not just for engineers. And so for the young people, you are here from UG, the young lady, I think Ms. Bacchus from the law faculty, go back and spread the word, because the more people that we can bring to the table, it is the more benefits that can accrue to all of us. So I would really like to encourage you to get involved, give your name. Vidya, who's the person who is connecting the names of Marceline? So please stand, Marceline, so the people in the room can see you and they can know where to go before they walk out of the door this afternoon. And let's see. Yes, but it starts with just giving your name and your contact details, so that when we form the WhatsApp group and send out the message, we know, you know what is going on. So that is what I will close with. I hope, Jennifer, your name is going to be on the list. Jennifer to my left and not Jennifer to the front, but sorry, not meaning to exclude. But anyway, let me quit while I'm behind. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And take care. God bless.
And before we cut the stream, let me shout out my CTU staff at Trinidad and Tobago who could not be here. Tremendous support behind the scenes, logistically, agenda-wise, preparing all the scripts to make sure that everything runs smoothly. So thank you all very much from the bottom of my heart. Enjoy the rest of your evening until CIGF 21. All the best.